Yeah, it's a very interesting market.
It is. And India, moving on to the next story in India today, India has become one of the most dominant nations in edtech. So when we talk about unicorns, traditionally we had only seen the United States and China have edtech unicorns. And then we saw Byju's come out of India, and India's gained this very prominent placement in creating educational tech. And India Today has released an incredibly interesting article called Important Tech Trends That Will Reshape Indian EdTech in 2021. So while the story is about the biggest trends in learning in India, I think looking at that market that has some of the biggest learning companies and biggest pool of users is very interesting in terms of predicting global trends. So if we look at India, India has, like every other country, the edtech industry has benefited from the COVID-19 pandemic. And I think there's no reason to pretend they haven't benefited. It sounds like terrible to say it, but whatever crisis happens, there are always people that benefit financially and people that don't benefit.
Yeah.
And a recent KPMG study of India showed that there's now over 3,500 edtech companies, like startups, operating out of India. And that the Indian edtech market could be worth as much as 1.96 billion in 2021.
Wow.
In 2021,
Wow.
just India. There's a reason why our investors keep telling us, like, when are we going to India? India's complicated. We are looking at India. India's super complicated, but it's if you get it right, you get it right. But the trends there are, of course, the first one, gamification. So the ability to make your edtech solution more playful, that you curate people through the learning experiences in ways where they're nudged, they're given diplomas and badges. So I think this is a trend we've seen for like 5 years. It's not a super interesting new trend. But this whole incentive-based learning, more play-based learning, I actually see, like, to me, gamification has always been like the poor man's way of not making a game. So it's like we've seen, other companies actually include, the intersection of learning and gaming. They're almost coming together.
Yeah.
So of course you can gamify and make it more playful, but I actually think I think this is a bit old. I think the next wave will be integrations between learning and games. So if I'm about to learn something about economics or trade, I might as well integrate with a game where people, like World of Warcraft, I can learn something through that immersive experience rather than just gamifying my way of reading a text about how to do trade.
True.
So I think we'll see. I think they're behind in India today. That we'll see this being pushed much further.
But it's also interesting how different the Indian mindset, at least the startup mindset, like how different it is than the rest of us. Because you have to be like with the proper mindset to recognize opportunity and to take leverage of it. So if Indians have made such a big change in edtech, why aren't the rest? And what's the difference between Indian startups and the rest of the world?
So the Indian mindset to me is very much closer to what we see like an Indian parent or like an Asian parent. So we've seen a lot of people rise out of poverty that now constitute a much bigger middle class. And what's most important for them is for their children to do well in school and get a career. So parents are pushing a ton of money first into all this like tutoring, ensuring that their students are like online tutoring. I get a tutor. I'm not great at math. We know I need amazing math to become a doctor. So the kind of the first wave was this tutoring. And now it's those very sort of content-heavy platforms that take you through the whole curriculum of med school, for example, right, or medical school. So it's very much like the same as we see in the Asian market, these content-heavy platforms that are becoming super popular, but they're also hard to scale because they require such a heavy content bank, like a production, video production, PowerPoint production of the content for it.
Now I'm expecting to see the Indian version of Baby Shark.
Exactly. Yeah, they might as well. Yeah. So yeah, in many ways, it's like, like this whole South Korean, like we're seeing in China. China's huge in edtech, like that they're really pushing forward to be able to, like, because they're spending the money on behalf of their kids. Another of the trends that they're highlighting is artificial intelligence. and big data. So actually in India and in China, I'd say they're better than the United States in creating this personalized learning experience, so that they use your data to curate the learning experience to you. And for a long time we've talked about that. People aren't very, generally haven't been very good at it, but we've seen some examples come out of there. And of course, that's the ultimate hack. If you can find a way of curating the learning experience, again, I'm a parent. I want to spend whatever money it takes to make sure my son or daughter becomes a doctor. That's a lot of the mentality that still prevails.
Yeah, it is.
Then if you don't just get a platform that teaches me what I need to know, but that can identify what I know and what I don't know and make sure I spend my time right, then that's definitely where I want to put a bang for my buck. The final two big trends are generally about like cloud storage and software in the cloud. So we have to remember in a lot of these places, like I sometimes assume that all software is in the cloud, but we have seen a transition the last couple of years that some software still isn't in the cloud. So they need to make sure that all of the software is in the cloud and that the data is stored in the cloud. And the final, to me, most interesting is about wearables and simulation studios. So the use of augmented reality and virtual reality in teaching. That's going to be the next big thing. Virtual reality and augmented reality to me has had this promise forever, but a lot of it sucked for a while. And now it's gotten a lot better fast. But then the second hurdle has been the cost of the hardware. So we're talking about with the pandemic, there are tons of places still where they don't have internet, they're not going to school, they don't even have a basic learning platform. So if we think that like virtual reality learning is just around the corner from a global perspective, that's not the case. But we do see that the advancements have been there, the ability to drive down the cost. I mean, it is coming and we're getting there.